Single file line, please. Please form a single file line. Everybody can get a chance here. We'll move it quickly through. You're less crazy than you. That's great. Single file line, please. Right here, starting right back there. Back in the back. See what happens? Single file line. Don't hide because you'll pay. Single file line. Single file line, please. I'm telling you, I'm asking you again. Don't make me get upset. I'm only doing my job. Please form a single file line, going through at a rapid pace, and we'll get everybody through and get everybody back. A lot of time.
If I bought stuff this, what, louder? All right. If I bought stuff to smoke in Amsterdam. If I brought it back to the United States, I'd be a criminal. They could prosecute me for this fucking Cuban cigar. People are nuts. 40 million people smoked marijuana in the United States. 3 people didn't like it. Jimmy Carter didn't inhale. Clarence Thomas didn't like it, and some other guy that wanted to be a Supreme Court judge. That's what we're dealing with. The lawyers got to be freaked out by that.
Jimmy Carter supported decriminalization.
Yeah.
Clinton.
Clinton didn't inhale.
Yeah. Now you know. Now you know. So, how do you get that dialogue going? What, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I wanted to say, but if 40 million people at one time go and get arrested and it didn't ask for a lawyer, wouldn't the law change?
Oh!
I think it's a fabulous idea. Bobby suggested that yesterday on
Bus stand.
May 14th.
A bus stand.
June 14th, 1997.
Bobby's term was civil obedience.
Mass civil obedience.
I loved it.
Yes, sir.
I loved it. I think that
Go and obey the law. You demand
what you have is selective
go to the jury trial by the
people
thousands.
were uniformly arrested. They couldn't deal. The system couldn't deal with it. Same thing with pleas of guilty. Plead guilty and it makes it easier on the system. You want a lawyer that is prepared to stand up and fight. Sometimes it's too hard for people. The law is so bad now that there's pressure on people to become rats. Where they normally wouldn't do it, they just can't withstand looking at 20 years in jail. 3 strikes and you're out. Mandatory sentences. Real serious situation. You have to take it serious. I urge no one, and I would encourage everyone not to break the law going back into the States. They're going to be looking for you, and it's risky and the potential penalties are horrendous.
Especially in New York.
What?
Especially in New York.
JFK? I know they're going to pull me
1
apart.
ounce, 25 years.
Yeah. So do the right thing.
What about the prescription from Holland?
Let me tell you about. I think that's bullshit.
It won't work there.
Let me tell you what the deal is on the prescriptions. If a person has a medical need for marijuana and they get charged in the United States, there's an opportunity to put on a defense by establishing that there is a necessary medical need that surpasses the need of the law as is perceived by the authorities. Very few cases like that are won. In order to establish a record, you need expert witnesses, you need testimony. It's extremely expensive to gather it and put it all together. Public defenders' offices can't do it. Private lawyers can only do but so much with the resources that are available in cases like that. So it's real hard to win them. The prescription from Amsterdam is but one piece of evidence in that case, and not a terribly persuasive one. There's lots of drugs that are legal in some places for medication and aren't legal in the United States. For cancer, for AIDS, things that are in Mexico, The United States says, no, it's illegal no matter what's prescribed for you in another country. That's the reality of it. Prescription may be an exhibit among 500,000 dealers.
Isn't there something in the UN about that?
Nothing that does away with anything I just told you.
Well, the way the people are bringing it in, like Todd McCormick, is supposedly, and I'm not saying that I know the law on this, but there's a law that says if a drug isn't approved in the United States, you can still bring it in for personal medical use. And a lot of people who have had cancers brought different drugs in that way, and supposedly that's how Todd's bringing it in. That's not to say that that's valid in the case of marijuana. Now, so you go to the dentist, and they say, well, if I have to drill, it's $125, and if you want a gold crown, it's X amount, and they have a whole formula, right? Or if you go to a doctor, most people who go to a doctor, if you have some health plan or something, you don't really even ask. So what happens when you go to the attorney, and the attorney says, well, I need $10,000. And how many people have heard, like, the attorney takes $10,000, he or she goes to the arraignment and maybe writes some paper saying Johnny's a good boy, and then says, hey, your money's used up. Do you have anything on paper, what they're supposed to do, how much time they got or anything? Well, this is something that's really serious. I mean, you only have a limited amount of money. You can only buy so many Mercedes for your friends. So what do? Well, the first thing you do, and remember this, there are two things. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. And if you're earning your living from pot, expect that sometime or other you're going to get busted. So have the money available for the attorney, for the bail, for all of that stuff. Because you know the funny thing about jail? When the bars close, you can't get out. Or that's not so funny, but that's the thing about it. So that even if it's posh, and even if they had cable and everything else that you ever wanted, you still can't leave, So Billy is going to talk about exactly how to deal with your attorney. I mean, he looks at it from the other side, but this is what he expects as well as what he would like to hear from you, so you can figure it out.
One of the most important things that you need to do is you need to make certain that you tell your attorney the truth. And a lot of times they don't want to know the truth, not necessarily all the facts, but let them know what exactly is going on. It isn't time for your attorney to find out something in the courtroom ahead of time. So if you're doing something illegal, you can't be like you're talking to the judge and like you're stupid and you think the lawyer was born yesterday. You got to let them see the facts. And a lot of times in the judging the fee, it's hard to say because a lot of times you couldn't afford to hire the attorney to do the work right. But on the other side of the coin, if you can't get an attorney that will commit himself or herself to do the kind of work that you get the defense you would want to have, then you're in the wrong position altogether. So, it's a tough decision. I'd like to say you say X amount of money and you get it. You don't. You just have to work with the individual. People tell me that there's all the money there is in dope. Well, all I do is criminal defense work and have mainly for 18 years, and they ain't got a lot of money. It's mainly people that are just growing enough for themselves or for other people or for some normal people that can't get it along the normal line. And these people that come into me, it depends a big deal. If you're going to go state charges, which doesn't really mean anything over here, because states mean other countries, but in the United States there's 50 of us, and 50 states have 50 different laws, but the thing to do now is look at the federal law, and if the federal law is looking at your case, and they can go after you, what's known as consecutively, or concurrently, they can go after you at the same time as the state charge. And what may be just a maximum sentence, like Bill was telling me in California, cultivation is only 3-year maximum state charge. Over 100 marijuana plants, federal law is 10-year mandatory. 10 years. And if you had one prior drug conviction, it's mandatory 20 years. And there are people like you and sitting out there that are doing 20 years right now that had more than 101 marijuana plants after having one prior conviction of a teeny tiny, maybe amount. It isn't some big Colombian with boatloads of marijuana. It's citizens, ordinary people, you know, and that people don't realize. If it hadn't been for Ed's testimony in that case, and coming over here last year, getting to know the cut, going through the museum, getting to know more about marijuana and how to present it to a jury to show that people can grow for their own use and don't automatically mean they have to sell it or distribute it, was really some important thing to do. And it was something that every attorney ought to do if they're going to take a case. Doesn't mean now you got to go out and kill somebody to take a murder case, but you need to do certain things and be made aware of certain facts. And that's the same thing you need to do on a fee. You're never going to get the fee that you deserve because you put too much time in. You're never going to get the fee that you're owed because it costs too much. But if you're going to get a fee that lets you keep living and continuing on with other cases, that's just the way I do it. Different attorneys have different fee arrangement, but I don't have a set fee. I could have 10 people come in with 10 same charges and have 10 different criminal histories, 10 different findings, and have 10 different fees. And probably half of them can afford me and half can't. So you got to go a lot on. Sometimes you got to say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. Other times, you know, it's a good interest of law, or you want to stuff it down some prosecutor's throat, or you want to take some hard-ass judge to the wall out in the public. Then you say, well, maybe I could go for a little bit less. You know, it just depends. There are some personal agendas, but everything's getting computerized. You know, forum shopping, everything's done by computer. One day you're in front of one judge, the next day you're expected to go to trial for another judge. Speedy trial, hurry up. You know, there's just so many things that have to be considered. If you can't get an expert witness in a marijuana cultivation case, you may as well start going and doing your 10 years. But I think what's important to remember about a lawyer is, just like on health care, get preventative legal care. You can't get advice from a lawyer on how to break the law, but you can get advice from a lawyer on what means I go for 10 years mandatory, 20 years mandatory. What does it mean if I have this amount of this weight of a controlled substance? What is the minimum time I will do federally? What is the quantity I need to have to make that to be fit to my individual characteristics? Not much. You know, those type of questions. What are wiretaps? What are thermal imagery? What are search and seizure? There's a lot of preventative type care. Search and seizure, permission, consensual. Getting on the airplane, they talked about earlier, Chef Rod, Iceland. You know, the thing to do in America now is to get on a bus coming from out of state and go through the bus. You're supposed to know that you're free to go and not worry that just because two people in full uniform with guns and dogs that are walking to the back and there's no way out, you understand perfectly it's your right to say, oh, you don't need to look at my stuff. You have your own permission. And they ruled that. But that's not coercing. Everybody should expect that if you travel in America. And people are consenting that are being stopped. There's no more drug courier profile. It's who do I want to pick? It's the old zigzag on the bumper. Pull them over. That's probable cause. That's what it's reverted back to. That kind of gets off the subject of the fees, but you can see how it gets involved. You're going to get an emotional case. You're going to get a high publicity case. You're going to get somebody that's just getting shit all over, and, you know, a dog couldn't kick down further, and you're just going to help them out. Or you get somebody that's getting the shaft. Or you get too many people that are getting the shaft, and you can only handle a few. You just kind of go. But those that got to pay for those that don't have it. And you just kind of work it out that way. And you do the best you can.
Is a white Rastafarian whose church is recognized in the Encyclopedia of Religion, and and it was a very interesting case because the judge allowed a religious argument to be made, and Logan wants to go through just what it took to make that religious argument. So, and then now, but before he begins doing that, you know, for days I've been threatening to try and collect some money from you guys for the California Medical Marijuana Initiative, which the majority of Californians, if given the chance, would vote yes for. And I have up here, right? So while this is going on, they're just going to go around. No coins. Preferably checks. If you want to do MasterCard, I'll do it after. 50s. This is each guilder, or each guilder is worth about one signature. Each dollar is worth 2 signatures. We need 500,000 signatures to put it on the California ballot. If it goes on the ballot, look, we won by 79% in San Francisco, in the 77% in Santa Cruz. This is a winning proposition. All we have to do is get it on the ballot and keep the misinformation at bay. We can do that. We need everybody's help. If we don't help ourselves, people who weren't brought here by high times have spent thousands of dollars to come here or to move here. Why did you move here? If you're living here now or an expatriate, remember why they forced you to move. Get back at them. Buy some signatures. 50s, 100s. We're not kidding. We need it. You're the successful people. You came here. You could come here. Just think, for every one of you, there are hundreds of people in jail now, as we speak, who had their Thanksgiving dinner, not expatriates in Holland, but prisoners of war. And you have to get the prisoners of war out. And if California goes, the whole nation will go that way. So it's up to you. And if you won't do it, I've tried this before at rallies, and there were 1,000 people at rallies, and we got $700, and people would give us coins. We expect more. You came here for this. You have to give big, bigger than you have ever given for charity. Think of all the years that you didn't give. Give an ounce. Everybody here has either bought an ounce or sold an ounce. Give an ounce. That, if you use an ounce a week, that's only 2% of your entire year's use. You have to give. If you don't give, we're sunk. Thank you. Fogelnest is going to say something.
That's easy to follow. Actually, stands a very strong chance of winning. And if it does pass, it becomes a precedent because it means that the point has been made, at least in one forum, that's beyond refute. And the way to make it happen, see, I believe this. If you're not playing the game's playing you. That's what politics is about. This is politics. The only thing stopping it from passing is financial assistance. To the extent you want to be a player, kick in. What else do you want me to talk about? A lot of people have to work with public defenders. There's some great fucking lawyers that are public defenders. And it's nothing to initially get freaked out about. But you need to find out certain things to see if you can make it work. Public defenders work under an enormous burden because of their caseload. They just have so many people to help that they can't give you the same degree of individual attention that private lawyers do. But some private lawyers suck, and they just rip you off and they don't give you the attention. So if you have a public defender that cares and you sense is going to want to do it for you and to make a point, and again because of the political component of it, then you're 90% of the way there. You need to know that. When you go in and talk to your lawyer, recognize this. Abraham Lincoln said that a lawyer's stock in trade is his time and advice. Lincoln was a sexist. He should have said his or hers. That's what we have to sell. And we have obligations that we have to meet. It's like a business, just like anybody else. And fees are sometimes negotiable.
Wait a second.
Is that what you want me to talk about?
No, there's something wrong here.
Okay.
Yeah, there's something wrong here. Hey, you go into a coffee shop, how much do you spend? 25 guilders, right? Yeah. I hear coins here. That's bullshit. It's bullshit. I want everybody here to take out a 25 guilder note. Come on, let's take them out. Don't sit there. Come on, take it out. Let's everybody take it out and raise it up. Everybody spent 25 guilders. I don't believe this. We should walk off. I don't believe it. You spent thousands of dollars to come here. In this room, for each person, it cost $1,000 to get here. There's one. Come on. Are you guys gonna put it out?
Absolutely.
Okay, get it out.
Yeah.
Come on, let's see who's committed enough for 25 guilders that they buy one less bag of dough. I don't want to hear any more coins. This is disgusting. Disgusting. Just disgusting. I don't know how you think about yourselves.
I'll give it to you if you stop.
Okay. Hey, that's it. I'm not going to stop till you guys start getting it out. Get it up. Get it up.
To your question is what you have to do in order to raise a constitutional defense in a case. I had an Israel Zion Coptic priest who was stopped at a border patrol checkpoint with 40 pounds of Mexican in his trunk, and he freely admitted it was his. He was on his way back to Wisconsin to take it back to his flock where they would smoke it in religious ceremonies. He was a very sincere man, and it appeared to me that he had a good constitutional argument. In California, there are 7 reported appellate court decisions where people raised that issue. There are also about a dozen relevant appellate court decisions on the federal level, including the Santeria case where the people were given the religious freedom to pull the heads off the live chickens and then drink the blood. So I figured, smoke a little pot, who cares? The judge said, okay, he gave us the money. He said we could ask for the money, but we would be denied. He said he thought we should get the money, but the judge who controlled the purse strings would not give us any money. In order to put together a defense team, we had to raise about $3,000 for just airfare and hotels for a week-long trial. John Morgan came from the University of New York Medical School. He wrote the Merck Manual, which is the doctor's manual on marijuana. He knew it wasn't a medical problem. Ed Rosenthal testified. He has written papers on the social and economic and all of the interests of the government in making marijuana illegal at all. Why is this shit illegal in the first place? Dale Geringer of California Normal testified. He's a PhD economist. He has studied the economics of criminalization. We then were past certain evidentiary hurdles, and the government was required to prove that the state had a compelling interest in criminalization at all. Their apologist was a Department of Transportation researcher, Marceline Burns, who testified that you couldn't do the Simon Says game as good as you should, and you got a mild bronchitis, and other than that, she didn't have any bitch about the stuff. She testified that marijuana should not be legalized based on her research of 220 people. That's all. There's more people here right now that I know smoke pot, and she based her opinions on that. We put together a defense team that was superb. We made a beautiful record, and the judge convicted the defendant anyway. He sentenced him to 180 days only, even though he had a prior conviction. We're up on appeal. If you had to pay a private lawyer to do that work, to put together the initial stuff, I did about 300 hours worth of work learning about the Ethiopian Zion Coptic Church and then its offshoot, the Israel Zion Coptic Church, and why they were different and why they were the same. And we were allowed to introduce testimony from a trial in Wisconsin, and the district attorney accepted it without cross-examination, saving us about $10,000 worth of witnesses. We went to court, and the defendant testified that yes, he was sincere. And the judge said, where in the Bible does it say that you ought to get 40 pounds of pot in San Diego and drive to Wisconsin? And he said, Acts 23, verse 24. And the judge pulled his King James Bible out, and Gregory Peck pulled his Bible out, and courtesy of Mr. Gideon, I pulled my Bible out. And the district attorney said, well, does anybody have a spare Bible? We gave her one, and we reasoned. We talked about the law. We talked about God's word in the Bible. We talked about the Coptic use of marijuana. The judge was very receptive. He had all the evidence in on the record, and then he convicted him anyway. That would have cost $50,000 to $100,000 easily to put that kind of a show on. Public defenders cannot do it, will not do it. What do you got, Bob?
Why weren't you in front of a jury?
Because educating a jury of peers in Riverside County, California would have been a monumental task. The real issue were issues of, under California's scheme, technical question. Under California's scheme, we had issues of law and fact. The only issue of fact, i.e. a jury issue, was, is the defendant a bona fide good faith practitioner of his religion? The DA stipulated to that. The rest were issues of law that were going to be decided by the judge anyway. Understand? Okay.
Any comment on that case? The jury would have expected him to testify, and if he testified to know where that dope was going once, it went to those people. So in effect, he was distributing outside of the church, or could have been, and like he just chose not to know about it. And that was the reason for the conviction. And I think another reason why the judge convicted was this. He gave a very good thing for appeal. Now, if we had won the case, it would have set no precedent. It has to go to appeal to set a precedent. The judge was doing us a favor. Unfortunately, the defendant decided to cave then. He didn't realize what it was all about, or he just got tired. I mean, he had a number of children, he was a father, he had to get on with his life. And while it's just weeks out of my time or Logan's time, it's a whole defendant's life. Months go on. Oh, and he comes out, and it's been postponed again for another 3 weeks. Oh, I can't do it in 3 weeks. You have to make another case. And it just stretches on into this person's life. So he just couldn't last it out. But I think that he gave us a very appealable kind of thing. And this was not the perfect case. Would you agree with that?
Stuff for the hemp movement, and we produced this little book called Marijuana Laws, Understanding the State and Federal Marijuana Laws for All the Offenses. And it's really informative, and I only have one left because I brought so many and they just disappeared, as did all my hemp cards. But it talks about important issues like what to say to cops and search and seizure law and how to really act out there. But it has a breakdown of the specific marijuana laws in every state. And we're giving these away through LA Normal, and you can just call information in Los Angeles and ask for Normal, give you our number, and we'll be happy to send it to you. And I'm going to leave this one up here so you guys can understand and get the opportunity to look at this. But one other thing I thought was being missed here, everyone's talking about meeting lawyers and how do you know a good lawyer. When you meet a lawyer and you can sit in his office and you just know it's a guy that you can relate to and you're not going to keep anything from, you're not going to have any surprises when they go into court. It's an important issue. The last thing I want to find out when I go to court is the DA's got some really important information. Hey, what about those 5 scales you found in your guy's closet? And it's like, oh, I didn't know you needed to know about that. I mean, that's important stuff to know. But if you want to, let's hope no one needs us. We don't want any of you as clients, okay? But what can you do to help change the law without setting precedent and having to get busted so we can go to court, hopefully lose, so we can go to appeal and have precedent? What we can do is you can write your congressman and call and leave messages and fax these people and say, listen, I voted for you last year and I'm not going to vote for you this year unless you support the legislation I'm in favor of, such as the Compassionate Use Initiative, such as Jack Herer's Comprehensive Hemp Initiative, which is actually the only initiative which lets people out of jail. These are both very incredible initiatives. The medical marijuana has got a better chance of passing. But they're not going to pass unless they know they have public support. And it's more than signatures, it's more than money. Every letter that gets through to a congressman is an indicator of 3,000 other people. And when you say to someone, listen, I support you, but I may not next year. I'm not going to give you my vote. That's when these guys get worried. They shit their pants, okay? So you can do this stuff. And you can call my number. I'll give you Pete Wilson. I mean, I'm talking about California. That's where I am. But I can hook you up to all the states and get the personal fax numbers of all these congressmen, all the governors and legislators, and you can make a difference. And Normal has not a million obviously, but a lot of chapters, and in almost every state. And you call these people and you can donate time, 1 hour a month, to open mail, to read people's cries for help, to send them information. I have so much information, I just don't have time to respond to everybody. And none of us, there aren't enough of us who are willing to put ourselves out and fight for legalization. But come up and look at the book, call LA Normal, wherever you are from, anywhere in Europe and the United States, and we'll send you this guide to understanding the laws. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I've been a member of Normal since I was a deputy district attorney in Tulare County, California in 1974. Normal does not give out your name to anybody. Nobody can look at it. We're protected in California by statute, and the people that are in charge of that are just guarding your rights. You ought to join Normal. You ought to send them the money. Join under a phony name. We don't care. We mail you stuff that you can't tell. It's a plain brown envelope, just like the sex stuff you get anyway, so nobody will know. We don't sell your name to anybody. So many people call me and say, listen, I have a great defense. They violated my rights. I have this and I have that and I have this, but I don't have any money. And will Normal give me a free attorney? And the first thing I ask them is, are you a member of Normal? Have you paid your money for Normal? Normal has in the United States of America 5,000 active dues-paying regular people out of the 18 million regular pot smokers. Join up, folks. We don't sell your name to anybody, and you ought to support it. The people that support Normal are lawyers. A lot of them get referrals on cases. A lot of them don't. It's some place to start anyway, to find people that are willing to step forward and say, yeah, I'm a member of Normal. Yeah, I smoke pot. Sure. And I'm a lawyer. So what? Those are the kind of lawyers that you want to go to, because those are the kind of lawyers that think your rights are important because their rights are the same rights. I want to talk a little bit about expert witnesses and then have Ed Rosenthal continue on. When I was in 1985, California had a case that decided that it was up to the judge to figure out whether or not the pot you were growing was for your personal use. Not how many plants or how many pounds, just if it is for personal use, you could go get drug diversion. You didn't have to go to jail, no time, no fine. You could say I'd never been arrested. Very good washout law in California from 76 on. So the issue was, how do you prove it is for your personal use? Because the cops always say, oh, you get a pound of dried manicured bud plus another 3 to 4 pounds of biomass from any plant, even though right now it's only 6 inches tall. They extrapolate into it. The worst case scenario had a guy in Yosemite National Park with a bag of seeds. They charged him with possession with intent to distribute and attempted cultivation of 2,000 kilos of pot, because he had 2,000, we call it Mr. 2,000 seeds, like the Mr. 2,000 flushes, because his life, it was a 10 to life. They offered him 5 years if he'd plead guilty. We went to trial. The jury said, no way. Ed Rosenthal testified as an expert witness. The jury found him guilty of possession of 240 grams of pot, which is a 6-month misdemeanor, and the judge gave him the mandatory time, 6 months in a halfway house, but that's better than 10 years in jail. The key to that case was having an expert witness who could say, this is what the evidence really showed. This is what the evidence really means. Ed and I worked together on a case in South Dakota. It was the largest indoor cultivation case in South Dakota history, 93 plants occupying 36 square feet. That's only 6 by 6. The plants were only in 4-inch pots, but this was 93 plants, and the excuse me, I almost said a bad word. The person who testified for the prosecution,
What was the bad word?
jackass, testified that each one of his plants would yield at least a pound of dried manicured bud. At least a pound per plant. 93 pounds, could not be personal use. I said to him, where can I get those seeds? I'd love to get those seeds. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. They had no botanical backup for that. The judge was very nice. He gave the lawyers, husband and wife defendant, he gave each of them some money to hire an expert. One of them hired me, one of them hired Ed. We went back there. We reviewed the evidence, we looked at what they had, we saw the plants. Ed went out and got some visual aids. I'll let him tell you about the story on and on, but in the end we had a great result because we had lawyers who were willing to learn and willing to be educated. The lawyers knew nothing about pot, not much about criminal defense, but they were intrigued with the idea that the cops were wrong. They were ignorant, not necessarily lying, although I think they were that too, but they were certainly ignorant about marijuana and marijuana growing. So with the use of expert witnesses, we were able to get a great result. If you've got a case where you think you need to prove a point, if your lawyer is not talking about an expert witness, ask he or she, him or her, who's the expert? How are we going to prove this point or that point? How are we going to plug this in together and make it work? Do you have a question I can answer, Bobby?
Yeah, I hope it's not too generic. In general, how do serious medical cases actually fare against juries?
Okay.
Or with
I can tell you that. The question is, how do serious medical defense or medical necessity cases fare in jury trial, right? The answer is it depends where you are, what your case is. In the John Wayne Hudson case involved someone who was cultivating for his own use and was giving the rest of it to Dennis at the Buyers Club for free distribution. In other words, I'm growing it, I'm smoking it, I got too much. Well, yeah, but I'm giving it away. The question is that for personal use? We expected the jury to acquit. They finally offered him a plea of guilty to unauthorized theft of electricity because they make us criminals, not just outlaws, because you can't pay for the electricity. He had to steal it or he would have gotten busted. He got busted anyway. That's all he pled to. They dismissed everything else because they were afraid of the jury, I'm sure. Juries have acquitted people in San Diego, California. Sam Skipper, he's HIV positive. He has a T-cell count that fluctuates wildly. He did a study, a T-cell study before and after he ate pot. The jury acquitted him. The judge ordered the cops to give him back his pot and his grow lights. The DA went just hyperbolic. He went crazy. They appealed. The appellate court said, well, okay, we can let it stand. But the judge then was presented with a chance to convict Sam on a violation of probation for the same exact offense that the jury had acquitted him for, and the judge then found him guilty on the violation of probation, sentenced him to prison, and remanded him into custody. And the appellate court then issued a stay. That whole thing is now bundled up on appeal and going through the court. So he won the jury trial. Don't give up a jury unless you have no issue of fact, as we did in the religious case, because juries like the medical issue, I think. Don't be afraid to tell your lawyer to call somebody who knows about that. When I started doing my medical case, I didn't have to reinvent the wheel, but I had to gather all the parts from Santa Cruz, California, Valerie Corral, Tony Serra's office, who represented Brownie Mary. I had to go down and meet Sam Skipper and Juliana Hatfield from the public defender in San Diego. Sam Skipper's attorney was a public defender in San Diego. She marshaled the case together and she won the damn case. I lost mine. So public defenders can do the job if they can put the stuff together that they need to put. So the answer is it depends, but give it a try. I think if you have any reasonable defense that a jury might acquit you. They acquitted the Hempsters because they didn't prove that it was marijuana, because when the seeds germinated, they did not get to the second true leaf, and sterilized seeds sometimes will go dicotyledon, first set of true leaves, and then die, so they didn't prove it was viable. Total jury nullification. The jury just said, we don't want to convict these people. So they didn't. They acquitted them. Constitutional issues, we had great constitutional issues. The judge denied everything. We had a great appellate case. They acquitted him. There's no appellate issue. So take it to a jury, have an expert witness. Mr. Ed Rosenthal again.
Well, here's the thing about judges and juries. You know, I used to really be afraid of juries and thought that, you know, judges, they should really be fair. They know how to judge. Well, here's the thing. They were all former prosecutors. So everything that the prosecutors say made sense to them. And also, there's a certain system. You know, you have the same judge, the same prosecutor, the same bailiff, the same court recorder, court reporter, and all of that shit. You have all of those the same. And in order for that court to function just in a continuing flow so that this morass of garbage that goes through the courts can just flow through like shit through sewage, through a sewage pipe, is to have the prosecutor cooperate with you. Well, what's the next case? The next case, what's the next case? Guilty. What's the next case? Guilty, guilty, guilty. And so let's say the judge knows that the cop's lying, and knows that the prosecutor knows that the cop's lying, and knows that this defendant is innocent. So how does the judge rule? Right, because if he says the cop is lying this time, he might have lied last time and next time. And how about this prosecutor who's putting up a witness that he knows he's lying, which is a felony? How about him? Maybe somebody should come along and say, hey, maybe we should investigate this. So he can't do it. So here's the thing about juries. If you can get a jury of your peers, you have a good chance. Know anybody who didn't smoke? You know? I mean, we're just doing a survey. Did you smoke? Oh, no, no, not me. Right? I mean, what are you going to say? Oh, yeah, I used to smoke. You know. So all these surveys are wrong. So, you know, everybody smoked at some time. So if you have a jury, and especially if the jury knows the seriousness of the offense, like, there was one defendant who told me that if he had known that he could have done 5 to 20 years, that he just wouldn't have even thought about doing it. So when the prosecutor asked me whether I thought or I knew whether this guy knew that, I told the prosecutor what I knew. And the jury happened to hear it because he asked it in front of the jury. And so when the jury realized that this guy could get 5 to 20, I'm not saying there was a jury nullification or it affected them, because, you know, a jury should not be affected by what the sentence is. If a person is guilty, they're guilty. If they're innocent, they're innocent. But maybe innocence and guilty, like something switched, you know, how much proof you need or something. So, now, to Rodney King's case, this guy was a sleazeball. But you know what? Even sleazeballs don't deserve to go to jail for pot. If they're sleazeballs, they should go to jail for their sleaze. Okay, now I'll get libel. Okay, so anyway, so this guy had 3 different gardens lit by flickering fluorescents. I mean, literally flickering fluorescents. It was like he should have been in jail for the way he treated his plants. You know, that was a crime there. Well, anyway. And we had this jury that was farmers and ex-farmers and people who knew farmers. And here's what they were saying. In this area, these 3 gardens that total not 37.5 square feet, that's too much by 50%, 25 square feet. And he had 94 plants, half of which would be males. Throw them out, pound the plant, 47 pounds. Well, do you believe that, or do you believe 8 ounces? And so basically, if it was 8 ounces, it was personal use, because the jury was trying to define whether it was personal use. Or do you believe 47 pounds? And what we did was we got a cardboard cutout, and we put the 47 plants in the 3 gardens right in front of the judge's bench for the jury to see during the whole time. And we put some begonias and coleus and 4-inch pots on there so they could see these 47 pounds coming out of that area. And as the prosecution talked about those 47 pounds that were sitting right there in begonias and coleus and some marigolds. You know, they feed chickens marigold flowers to make the skin orange. Not bad for you, but just anyway, I digress. So anyway, so all of these plants, edible by livestock. Oh, coleus leaves get you high. I read that in some book. So anyway, Logan says it's true, so it must be true. Okay, get that Bible out. Okay, so anyway, and they saw that. And then I testified about the lights and, you know, everything. And these people were reasonable people. They just wanted to do what's fair. And I think that most juries, if you can get beyond the stereotype, if you can just move beyond it and become a real person. And you know what? A 3-hour trial doesn't do it. A 3-day trial, you can bring out the humanness and what it's all about. And the judge wants to hurry up. Can we hurry this up? Sure we can. We'll finish voir dire by tomorrow of the first prosecution witness. Because we're going to elicit just what a dumb fucking nut this guy is. And by the way, we have, I want to tell you that it will save your lawyer hundreds of hours. On one page we have just the questions to ask the prosecution witness. And Logan, have these questions knocked out prosecution witnesses? So the judge said, this witness is not qualified to testify. Do you have another witness, Mr. Prosecutor? That's right. So,
Questions? Take some questions.
questions.
น่าจะอีเลเลิกใช้มันนะคะสองวิธีคือแบบบล็อกตัว
I prefer.
Here we are at Blue. It's 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. Nothing's open yet, but Blue. It's Sunday morning, and this is the only place we can find to do our wake and bake. Yeah. Okay, here we are at Blue. It's Sunday morning. We're walking around everywhere. Can't find a place to
Yeah, sure.
Wake and bake.
This is Cafe Blue from the Jungle Book, right? I wonder if any of Disney's corporate attorneys have been in here. No, Mom, I can't speak with a regular actor. It's 1960 and we're in Haight-Ashbury. Not. It's Lucky Mother's in Amsterdam. This is my favorite place. It's ran entirely by women. It's the women's lib kind of place. Okay, come on in. Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, here we are.
Oh, it was good. Say something.
Say something. Well, here we are. No, I want to have my coffee. That's global. It looks great inside, so we'll be back.
Global Chillage.
Global change, yeah.
Global change.
I didn't
Global
say. I
chillage.
said global
Chillage.
chillage, but I thought it was just global. They'll know it from global. Okay, here we are at Gray Area, one of the winners of last year's Cannabis Cup. The world, and also it's the home of the European Cannabis Consumers Organization and the International Cannabis Club that anybody can join, actually. And it's new and it's still in development. And they're not sure really how it's going to unfold itself. So for the first thing, though, is they've invited us to put up our Human Rights 95 Atrocities of the Drug War exhibit. And we originally put this exhibit together in June of this year for the 50th anniversary of the United Nations. And we wanted to show, this was in San Francisco, California. It was a little bit different form of this exhibit that you see here. And we wanted to show it then to bring attention to the world community about the violations that the United States is committing against the people in the name of the war on drugs. And we, throughout the exhibit, what we've done is an analysis of how the drug war is violating different articles of the UN Declaration on Human Rights. And that's what that is over here. Do you want to add something at the introduction?
Well, yeah, just to say that the what you're seeing here right now is going to be sequentially almost in reverse of what it was intended to be. You should start with this and then walk your way to this one, and then to that one, and then to that one, which we are, except that we're walking in the wrong direction. So each of these things you're going to go from left to right per section to get the idea of the way it was intended to be seen. But it kind of works the way it does anyway.
It works.
One of the things that's kind of interesting, though, is we have these American flags all over it, which is very nationalistic and makes a lot of the Europeans feel uncomfortable because of the Nazis and the flags and so forth. They don't like to see flags all over things. And we feel that the nationalism in America is actually a big part of the problem, too. But what we found that when we do that to the people, what country is this? They didn't even believe it was our own country.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons there are so many flags in this exhibit. It's quite clear that we're not talking about Bosnia.
Or China.
Yeah, or China. Although in Southern California and here in the places.
It's pretty new. It's the Human Rights 95 project. Well, it was started when I saw a photo. We received. I'm Nikki Norris. I saw a photo of one of the prisoners with her children. Her name is Jodi Israel, who is in the religious and cultural freedom prisoner. Her mother had sent us, well, actually, to the Cannabis Action Network house where I was at a meeting in Berkeley, and I thought, oh my God, who are we locking up for long periods of time? Her mother said, can you help us? They're making orphans of my grandchildren, because they sent her daughter to prison for 11 years and her husband to prison for 26 years. And she was originally, her complete transaction that she was caught with was about 6 ounces altogether, and she got 11 years. And this was because they're rounding people up in conspiracy charges. She was associated with a group of Rastafarians in Montana. And
The Montana Rastafarians.
it was called Reggae Operation North. Operation Reggae North. And there were various group of people who, that was part of their culture, the whole thing, and they were selling some. And every person who was rounded up, and they got a lot of them, I'm not sure how many people was there. It's in the story. Were rounded up, and everybody was charged with the conspiracy being associated with each other. So that's why there's such long prison terms. And we're finding with the conspiracy laws, with a lot of these people, that you don't really have to be that directly involved with the drug offense. And in many cases, some people answered a telephone and gave a phone number of somebody, or they were living with the person and they got caught up and got big sentences. And all of this is because of the mandatory minimum sentences that the United States has adopted on a federal level, and also many on state levels too. So,
just one other point too, which is that one of the things that we found in the course of working for cannabis reform in the United States is that very often you hear DEA or government officials, they'll say, well, we can't change the laws because of the international treaties.
That's not true.
The fact of the matter is that the United States has never obeyed a single international treaty without, based upon the reason that it being is because it's a treaty. If it meets the interests of a select group in government, we obey it, and otherwise we don't. And the fact of the matter is that we're directly violating two very, very important international treaties, right offhand. The first is the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, which says that hemp and industrial hemp and medical marijuana are not included in the scheduling process. And the United States schedules them both Schedule I, the most restricted, despite the fact that the international law says it's not even in the process there. The other thing is the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, which is a minimum standard. According to this and according to our beliefs, what you're going to see in here, you're going to run into a lot of crack dealers and things like that. Normally, I have nothing to do with that. I consider marijuana very separate, but because people smoke marijuana doesn't mean that they've given up their human rights. Neither if they're smoking crack do they lose their human rights. And so we did not feel that we should draw a line and say only certain people still have high human rights. So we included people that normally we may not have, as long as they were nonviolent. And the third one is that there's an anti-genocide treaty that says that no government has the right to selectively persecute a culture within the greater culture. And when we get into the Grateful Dead section, and you see it, there's a deliberate policy in the United States of genocidally attacking certain cultures. And so as we go through this again, this is intent to start with this, to there, to the international, and then you start seeing what's going on with America, an explanation of the mandatory minimums, and into where the prisons are going. And you'll see that as the drug war spending goes up, that drug war spending is not taking more criminals out of society. It's taking more innocent people or non-violent individuals out of society. And a lot of these, the biggest part of this percentage here is actually people who are working people, family members, etc. This is not some kind of a drug dealer core. There's a little level of that maybe here. The vast majority of those are people who just enjoy smoking pot or doing some other drug.
So,
But they do.
probably will become Human Rights 96 next year.
That's something happens fast.
It was started by me and Virginia Resner with the Families Against Mandatory Minimums. FAM was involved in this. Fear, Forfeiture, Endangers American Rights. We got a lot of sponsors to put it together, and it's a coalition of many different groups, some hemp groups and things like that. But the bulk of the material we sent out. We had some prisoners who had contacted Family Council on Drug Awareness. FAM had a whole mailing list of people, and we were able to take some of the photos. There's a lot of women in here because it started as a FAM project of a women's project to show the women persecuted in the war on drugs, which is the fastest growing population in prisons right now because of the conspiracy charges. More women who are taken away from their children and the whole thing. And Forfeiture Endangers American Rights helped us put together some of the information for that. The Deadhead section, some people were in touch with Deadheads who received their artwork and poetry and things like that. And Midnight Special, there's one of the prisoners, Heather Silverstein. She started a collection, kind of a newsletter of poetry in the prisons with the Deadheads, where they can send in their poems. And what they originally did, because they don't give them the materials they need in prison, she was pasting it up with toothpaste and sending it to somebody out of prison, where they were able to reproduce it for her and send it back in. And she is in prison, and her husband is in prison also for, I don't know, somewhere 8 or 10 years. And
they're not allowed to write letters back.
They can't write to each other in prison. You can't write from one prisoner to another prisoner. You cannot organize in prison either. So
you
have
can't
to
get a magazine. So
you have to get some sponsors and things like that. For example, Amy, she's helped us a lot in this project. She's in Dublin Women's Prison in California, and she got 24 years. Her husband, she was separated from her husband. He went to Germany, was manufacturing some ecstasy, and she was living her life in Los Angeles. Some promoters, some kind of company, totally separate. When he got arrested for manufacturing ecstasy in Germany, he asked her to come and help him get out. And because she went there and was helping him, or just getting lawyers, whatever she needed to do to help him, the DEA wanted her to cooperate with them. She wouldn't cooperate. She wasn't about to, try to get him, more time and implicate him in the whole thing. And they said, if you're not going to cooperate with you, we're going to make your life miserable. And they did. And he got 4 years in Germany. He's out. She got 24 years in America. Okay? It's not good,
The difference is that he committed a crime in Germany, whereas she did not commit a crime.
And they said, she's admitted, I heard her on tape, she's admitted, she said, if they can get me on anything, he did send me some money. So she said, well, maybe, money laundering if they want, because it was that kind of money, she said. But she had nothing to do with the ecstasy and the whole thing, And so, but she got 24 years, and that was in Texas. They could
and tried in Minnesota or some weird place.
And he's from Arizona.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, he's in jail for life.
Some of these people are most of the people in here are non-violent first-time offenders.
Even though with gun charges, it's usually that there was a gun somewhere in the area.
Yeah, maybe somebody else had a gun in the conspiracy, and they're charged with a gun enhancement.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you wind up in the situation where if you bought pot from one person, and that person was connected with 20 other people, and one of those 20 people happen to have a gun and has some cocaine, that means you're going to get charged with all the pot that's being sold, plus the cocaine, plus the gun, plus the conspiracy.
That's what's happening in America.
And all you did was buy some stuff from yourself.
So this is a comparison showing you 5 years of what you would get in prison. This amount of cocaine could get you 5 years. This amount of crack will get you 5 years. So we're,
This
you know,
amount of LSD.
that amount of LSD because it's the carrier weight that,
Yeah.
you know, if it's paper, if it's sugar cubes, it doesn't matter how much LSD is on it. If the paper weighs that much, they'll consider it. And so we also want to bring out the mandatory minimums when you read through here. They're very costly financially. It costs a lot of money to incarcerate a person instead of educating them, putting them, you know, the money in other ways. The cost to society when you lock up a mother and a father, what happens to the children? Either they go to foster care, they go to a relative, or who knows where they go. Some of them are out on the streets. We're not really sure. They're not taken care of that well.
But one of the most important things is, of course, that we wanted to put the human face up on this drug war. And this is just something that just strikes one when you look at it. If you look at the drug war spending, you see a good sense of what the politics are in the United States. 1981, pot was almost legalized in 1980, of course. You're all pretty aware of that. So 1981, we see this increase of what's going on. Now, during Reagan's first term of office, no major increase, a steady increase, but nothing major. But when he got reelected, he said, "You ain't seen nothing yet." Well, what he did was to launch the drug war. Urine testing began, the military, the National Guard got involved, and so forth. But now the thing with Reagan is good for the show, not for the long haul. So we had this sudden burst of a lot of money, a lot of things going on, and then Congress started reacting, and the money started cutting back, and things looked like they were going back to normal. Then, all of a sudden, there was an election coming up. Suddenly, the spending goes way up again. George Bush got elected president. Of course, he's owner of Eli, well, not owner, but deeply involved with the CIA, the major importer of cocaine, and the Eli Lilly, the major producer of many of the drugs that can be replaced by cannabis, and you see this major increase. Then, by 1992, the drug war is becoming unpopular again. You see it's starting to taper down as we go into this next election. Nobody wanted to be in favor of the drug war by the last election in 92, and so it becomes very steady. And then Clinton gets in there. Clinton has a problem. He smoked pot in college. He actually smoked pot in a lot of other places too, but in college they definitely nailed him. He definitely admitted it in college. And so he has to become tough on drugs. All of a sudden, the curve goes up again. And so you can kind of actually see the politics of what was going on in the U.S. system just by where the money is going. Except the main thing is that in this period of time here is when the prison industry became institutionalized, that it became the dominant political force in America. The same way, by the way, as the army became the major political force in the Roman Empire as it reached into the last period of the decline and fall, and they also took up the beginning taxes property and became a major source of income for the Roman Empire, which led to the collapse of it. Exactly being manipulated. I mean, the same pattern exactly is happening in the United States today.
So I hope you take the time and look through these things, but we'll just give you an overview now. And you're showing the comparison of the United States with the rest of the world, the land of the free, where we're incarcerating more people per 100,000 than any other country in the world. I think I must qualify that actually Russia is having it's gone up recently, so we're not sure, you know. If
it's the same before it invaded Czechia and blew up the Parliament building and attacked Georgia. And now they have a lot more people in prison.
Okay.
Of course, it took them 2 wars and a military coup to reach the same level of freedom.
If we go this way, might as well just keep on going.
Yeah, keep on.
This one is showing.
Again, read from the left to the right.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's kind of an organic exhibit. You keep setting it up and you keep moving it, and, you know.
It moves around at its own discretion.
These are some prisoners. This guy got 15 years in Missouri. He had weird testicular cancers and radiation poisoning and stuff like that. He found that he was able to live using cannabis and eat and get his appetite up. He used it to get him off of a addiction to Demerol, which was helping him, you know, calm his stomach and everything. He got found he got 15. He's in prison right now, 15 years. This guy just got 6.5 years. He was an alcoholic who used and had clinical depression, used cannabis. It helped him not be an alcoholic and live and function as an attorney in Texas. And he's in prison now. This guy, Jimmy Montgomery, he was a pretty well-known case. He was found with this much marijuana in the back of his wheelchair. He's a paraplegic. He used it to control his spasms. He was originally given a life sentence in Oklahoma. And then it was reduced to, this is the wrong one. This is on the wrong thing. Chris! Anyway, he got, it was reduced from a life sentence to 10 years. The people who testified against him said they'd never seen a major dealer they had never seen anyone who had 2 ounces who wasn't a major dealer. So he got 10 years. He was in prison, and he was deteriorating. You know, they couldn't give him the health care he needed and the bathing and the whole thing, you know, with his condition. There was a lot of pressure put on him, and then the governor released him, actually, in July, I think it was, to a home, you know, like an electronic monitoring or something like that kind of thing. He's facing charges right now. He has a legal prescription from the Dutch government, or from a Dutch doctor. It should be recognized. He was able to take cannabis into the States with him. He set up a Buyers Club in San Diego, and then he thought he would bring it over to Rhode Island, bring over some cannabis and start a cannabis buyers club there. He ended up getting caught in Ohio with 30 pounds or so that he was going to start his club with. And it was marked not for sale, for medicinal use only, and the whole thing. And he showed him their prescription, and they're not sure what's going to happen with him. He's still facing the charges, and hopefully they'll win on some kind of search warrant violation. This whole thing. And he's in prison for 5 years. He was asthma. They can testify. His mother and grandmother can testify. They're big activists in Normal in Missouri, and they could testify to how bad his asthma was. It was like life-threatening kind of asthma. And they said mysteriously, when he was a teenager, it stopped, you know, and he started smoking cannabis, and then he was growing it, had a good job and everything. They found him by a infrared flyover kind of thing, and checked out his bills and the whole thing, and found that he had used a little more electricity than normal. And they got him for 5 years, mandatory minimum sentence. When you get a mandatory minimum sentence, it's no parole, but you have to serve at least 85% of it. And sometimes now in some prisons you can take a drug course and have it reduced to even more, and get into rehab. This panel is showing you about some proactive things that are happening. Dennis Perone has started a Buyers Club in San Francisco.
This is important for me because I'm doing a lot of stuff on the medicinal.
Chris. Yeah. We put the wrong POW update on this. That's James Geddes.
What's James Geddes doing?
Jim Montgomery.
How do you get on Jim?
Those boys got together.
This Amsterdam.
I think there was too much cannabis. That's right. I think it was a cannabis problem.
What is the James
When we had this one in LA for our display, we had a little different form. Everything's mounted on its own piece, you know, there. But we had these on pedestals to show the importance of our urine these days. The holy pee. This can betray us. Our bodily fluids can betray us and prevent you. You know, it's like very valuable. Okay, these are some proactive things. Dennis Perone started a cannabis buyers club in San Francisco. They now have about 6,500 patients who go through there and buy their cannabis, who are members of the club, mostly for AIDS and glaucoma and MS and some other paraplegics. You have to have a note from the doctor. You don't have to have a prescription. You have to have something that validates some kind of condition.
Dennis screens each member.
Yeah. Brownie Mary is a saint. She's been arrested a few times, and she works at the AIDS wards in San Francisco and bakes brownies and gives it to who she calls her kids. These are some people. This guy has glaucoma. It runs in his family. The whole thing, he grew cannabis on his farm in Kentucky and was thrown in a maximum security prison when they found out that he was growing in, what is it, Juliet? What is it called? Somewhere in Illinois, even though he's from Kentucky. They took everything from him, and when he got out, he came to the Netherlands and got a prescription from a doctor and was starting an association for medical patients where they could, although he's not associated with it right now, but he's a really nice guy, interesting case. And Elvie's one of the few people in America who gets legal cannabis from the government, from Mississippi, where they grow it. And it's terrible. they really, they give her her stuff, I think they want it not to be effective. She has her prescription's for 10 cigarettes a day. And it's all dry, and she has to hydrate it again, and, just to smoke it. You could send this many people to a community college and pay for their education. This many to Cal State University, this many to UC. And it's showing prison construction in the last 10 years versus state universities versus UC. So our priorities are building more prisons rather than that kind of thing. And this is spending versus education and stuff like that. And then I hope you take more time and read it afterwards. Here's showing, I love this, I hope you get a chance to read this comment. But this is the DARE program, which turns the children against their parents, or not knowingly, but you may be aware of that. Asset forfeiture information. It's still pretty bad, but they're starting to have some reform in this area, fortunately, making it a little harder to confiscate everything you own. And it was originally, of course, intended, to take the profits of your drug money, but in reality, it's just a way of them to take your property, right? Revenue seeking.
That's the thing that really made the big difference.
Yeah.
You take away your home and everything that you have and leave you on the street.
Yeah.
And when it gave the cops something for their effort, a little more. When they can, drive around in a seized Corvette with bubble guns on it. All over Oregon. 2 or 3 of them.
So here's another family in prison. Well, this mother got 7 years, the father got life. What happens to the children? They took their house, they took everything, Some friends, I think, took them in. But these were cannabis growers, or what did they have? I'm not real sure. Conspiracy to distribute cocaine, hashish, and marijuana. All right, and here's showing the parallel between Vietnam and the drug war, which they're actually pretty striking. You want to tell them about the truth?
Okay, and then the other, one of the most important things that we felt has come out in the past couple of years are that we've seen that the Clinton administration has been very backing away from the concept of a drug war. In fact, the first press conference that Lee Brown had, he said that it wasn't appropriate to talk in terms of a war against your own people. Well, we don't think it's appropriate to talk about a war, but we think it's less appropriate to wage a war against your own people and then not to talk about it. So our plan is to not let them off the hook on this, that if they don't think war is a good term for it, that it should not be the policy. And so we've been using another approach, which is that whereas we used to not use the term drug war, we refer to it as prohibition because we want to make that connection in people's minds. We've been talking more about the drug war. And so the reason this is important is because when you talk about how do you change the policy of the drug war, some of the greatest minds in the country have been dealing with this, and they haven't come up with a very good solution because it's too complex. It's operating at the state, the local, the federal, the international level, etc. So what we thought to do is there is a way to end a war. That's fairly clear-cut how you end wars. Either one side totally eliminates the other, which they've been trying to do for the past 30 years and have failed, and the other side is that the two sides talk about the issue. And so the way that it normally happens is that you declare a truce, and then you make sure that governments are in compliance with the Geneva Convention, and then you begin negotiations. Now, what we're doing right now is we're calling for a truce, and the European Cannabis Consumers Organization has endorsed this truce, and we're collecting signatures from people. We hope you'll all sign on to your support for it too. The idea with it is that we create a truce, and then to basically stop the attacks on civilians, and then according to the Geneva Convention, all non-combatant civilian offenders or prisoners have to be released during this time period. So that means that unless someone is on there for a specific violent charge, that they should be let out of prison right as soon as this truce is adopted. And then there's a group called the International Anti-Prohibitionist League, and we have some ideas of our own about what needs to be done with the international laws and how we can structure a reasonable peace process which will meet the concerns of society, which there are legitimate concerns of public safety and protecting children. However, the drug war has made it worse in both of those areas. So what we want to do is come up with something that meets the legitimate concerns of society and also solves the problem of the drug consumer to give them a safe environment too. And so this is what we're heading for, and we really hope people will sign this. The reason we ended again with the truce rather than the treaty, we started off with the idea of a treaty, and we wrote up some different things. It was great, of course, but the thing that we found is that a lot of the people who were even on our side were fighting over little details, or they couldn't say certain things, even though if they believed in their heart, they still couldn't say it because of some other issue that they're involved with and so forth. So we thought that the important thing is not really that we come up with the ultimate answer right now. The important thing right now is that we just stop violating people's human rights. And so that's what the truce calls for, is that they have to, whatever the drug policy is, it has to comply with human rights law. And so then when we go around the corner here, you're about to see the violations of human rights, which we've cataloged about 100 cases. And these are some of the people that we think should be out of prison right now.
And it's growing. This is a project in development. We're still expanding it and including more things.
Make sure you sign on these treaties, though, please.
Yeah, sign in the guest book.
And sign the guest book. And
over here, you come around the corner.
Yeah, please.
That's safe. This was really designed.
This is Danielle. He's not part of the exhibit, but he's usually here.
These people here, you know.
Of course. Definitely.
So these are their artwork. A lot of these are envelopes that they've sent from prison with their artwork on it. And different things here. This is the woman that kind of gave me the idea. I don't have the photos of her children here, but this is one of them. I just thought if Americans would see who we're locking up, maybe they wouldn't be so, just jump on with the whole thing, because these people are really, just living their lives and not hurting anybody else. Okay. And these are all marijuana prisoners here. This guy got 150 years for 5 plants. On appeal, it was reduced to 90 years. So that's Oklahoma, which is one of the worst. Is Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri.
Isn't Oklahoma also one of the top producers of marijuana?
Nothing. I know.
Outdoor?
I don't know. They might have some wild hemp or something like
There's
that.
some growers there.
These are all marijuana cases. Altogether, they got 245 years. I think we could educate a lot of people for the amount of money we're spending on these people. This guy was a paraplegic who hurt himself carrying out people like in the fire kind of thing. He was changing his career because he couldn't work like that anymore because of his back. He grew some plants. He was found with some seedlings, 167 marijuana seedlings that he was growing in his garage. And even though he saved over 100 lives, they threw him in prison for 10 years. They went with the mandatory minimum. They don't take into any considerations, Yeah. So, and this is a family. Oh, this one. These people here they had a grow shop in Georgia, a hydroponic store. The DEA asked them to put a video in their store, a camera in their store, so that they could see who's coming in and out of their store and who's buying equipment, who's going to be growing cannabis. And they refused, so the DEA set up operation outside of their store and was writing down license plate numbers of people buying it. They did a whole operation, a whole investigation. And when they arrested those other people, they charged them with a conspiracy to
They just out of
aid.
business.
They put them out of business. They took their home. They threw the husband in prison for, 16 years, the brother for 10, and the wife for 10. And this is for having a store. They did not find any marijuana in them at their house. They were not growing themselves. But because they had a grow store in Atlanta, they're in prison. Here's another.
What's the rate of conspiracy charges?
A lot of them. It's the fastest growing thing, and it was upheld in the Supreme Court that there's exceptions because of the overwhelming need of the drug war. The Sandra Day O'Connor, kind of her thing. Here's another family in prison. This one they got, somebody wanted their land, a developer or real estate person near them wanted their land. They wouldn't sell it to them. They found a way of raiding them. They threw the father, the mother, and I think 4 of their children in prison. So it's a whole family in prison here. And I don't know. When I see pictures like this, I just, it doesn't look like a dangerous man. His daughter's obviously suffering. Here's showing the comparison between how much time you'll get on average for drugs versus other charges. And this explains more about the conspiracy laws that are out of control right now. You can entrap, you could get really entrapped. This woman was a banker for, Bank of America. She was offered a job with an investment company. It turned out they were involved in some kind of cocaine stuff. And she got in their conspiracy for 24 years. She went to Mexico. She came back to clear her name. She thought she was clearing her name, that she was innocent. She really didn't have anything to do with it. It didn't matter. She got 24 years. And some of these letters are really interesting that the mothers have written. This guy, his involvement lasted 2 hours and it got him 27 years. He was a real estate agent. An informant who was setting him up, wanted him to close a deal in Costa Rica. And somewhere during that 2-hour meeting, they mentioned they were going to build an airstrip to bring in drugs or something, and he got 27 years. That was his only meeting. He was signing off a real estate deal. This woman carried she was a welfare mom with 3 or 4 kids, and somebody gave her $100, said, mail this package for me and keep the change. And she was, felt she needed the money. She went to Federal Express, and they thought she was suspicious. They opened up the package and found crack in it. And the guy who gave her the package somehow or another died a few weeks later. And she got stuck with 10 years for that first time.
I think there's one of the things that this has gotten us particularly very concerned about with this whole conspiracy thing, because a lot of people will say to us, well, aren't you worried about being political activists that the government's going to peg you or something? And we always know, because we don't grow, we don't deal. It's always been very clear that we don't do either of those two things, so there shouldn't be any real question. All they could ever get us for is possession of pot, which in California is less than a $100 ticket, so it's not really that much of a worry to us, excepting that when we've been working on this project, and we're finding there's a lot of situations where what the police do is they set up a scene, and then they invite various people into the scene, and then they mention that they are going to do things. And then, because they mentioned it in front of you, that means that you're part of it, and they can charge you with the things that they were talking about doing. And you had nothing to do with it, except you walked in and said, whoa, I don't want to be involved with this, and walked out the door again. You can still get the whole sentence, the biggest sentence of anybody in the entire thing, because... And then the question is, what were you supposed to do? That's never been defined, because you don't have an obligation to testify to the police. But if you don't testify to the police, then they hold that against you. And even if it's the police that are doing the whole thing, like most of these cases, the police are the ones providing the drugs, they're the ones providing the money, they're providing the plans, they're just talking to people and bringing them into this, and then it's the people that they talk to along the way that get into trouble. So we feel that in a sense being a political activist makes you safer because these people are not political activists you see on these walls. Very few of them are politically active. It's people who don't know their rights that are the most at risk, and that's the thing that we think is the most important, is for people to learn their rights.
Some of these, when you look at these sentences, some of them don't even make sense. You know, like 3 life sentences plus 20 years. What is that? Right.
I think it's like that Lenin race sort of thing where you put it in an airtight box with some kind of gas.
I think this woman I think her cousin was involved in something, and she used a telephone to commit a felony. Got life without parole. First time, not time to she also answered that testimony. This one, I think, gave a telephone number to somebody. So she said, they wanted to get a hold of somebody else. She was on that ABC special for that. It was a Walter Cronkite, Disney or whatever that is.
I think we should all pick a prisoner of war as our first adopted prisoner of war and show up in their behalf in Washington and Mass. If they can get 1 million people to show up because of their color, I think we should be able to get 1 billion people to show up because of what they believe in.
Yeah. We're thinking of doing something like this with, like the photos, going out demonstrating with the photos and
Like the mothers that disappeared and all
like
this.
that.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Did you guys hear the new trick they've got in the United States? They put up a sign on the side of the highway that says drug check ahead. And so anybody that turns around, they go after them. Probable cause.
Where is this?
In the United States, everywhere. And there's no drug check. It's just a sign.
They throw their drugs out the window and pull them over from there.
Well, and the tour here, take your time and read through this stuff. Some of the stories are just fascinating.
And we've just selected certain cases to highlight. Not all these people are quite as angelic, perhaps, as they may kind of seem here. In another way, people who are accused of dealing drugs are not seen as angels by the majority of Americans, so they might be as angelic as they seem here because some of us are more forgiving of the drug issue than others. But the thing with it is that we can only tell you about a few select stories in more detail, so that's what we've done here.
And it's basically a drug war out of control, obviously. Over here at the end, we ended with the memorial to people killed by law enforcement or people died in the struggle for reform, race activists who tried to change things. Here, we have the death certificate of Donald Scott, and it shows. Are you familiar with this case? Donald Scott, the Malibu millionaire. They wanted to forfeit his land. It's really a dirty, very dirty case. Anyway, they got a search warrant. However, they are banging on the door at early in the morning. Barged in. The wife was there. Said, "Don't shoot me. Don't kill me." And he came out with a gun over, and they said, "Put your gun down." And as he was putting it down, they shot him. And then no marijuana was found on his property. There was no basis. And actually, here they're showing the cause of death was homicide, and the homicide was by the police department, the law enforcement, the sheriff. It was a whole, it was his land was adjacent to parkland. They wanted.
What happened to his property?
Well, it all burned down in the Malibu fire recently, actually.
But there's another part of that too, which is that what happened was that in his will, it wasn't completely clear as to how it was leaving it. He left it to his wife and 2 children, and so it's led since then to a fight within the family over it, and one of the children wants to sell the property in order to get the money, and so as it goes, it's still a question as to whether she can continue to hang on to the property. And of course, the government is trying to get this one who wants to sell the property to sell, because that will break up the property, and then the feds will end up getting it, which is what they wanted all along. And so, the thing about this is, in addition to the fact that they just shot somebody who didn't have anything to do with drugs, which to me is not that much worse than shooting somebody who did have something to do with drugs. But nonetheless, is that the whole thing was really set up. They didn't intend to kill Don Scott. What they intended to do was to start up a process where he had only 30 days, 15 days to do his first response and 30 days to do his second. And if he had missed either of those deadlines, then they would automatically get his property. And that's really what they had in mind, because when they went in there, they knew Don Scott didn't know any of this stuff. And so they figured, this is my assessment, is that they thought they could just get in there, start the paperwork. Before he could find out that he had to respond, it would be too late. He would have missed the first deadline, and chances are he would have missed the second deadline, because the lawyers that he would talk to would take time to figure this all out. And so the whole property forfeiture thing is really just based on once they charge you and they charge your property.
And in Kentucky, defending his right to grow his few plants on his land. He was a Vietnam vet. It was a standoff, and they ended up killing him in front of his son, his 4-year-old son, and his girlfriend. And
of course, it was kind of a mistake when he said to him, "You're going to have to kill me to get those plants." Not the best thing to say to the feds. You might remind her. But the other interesting thing is that they had a 7-hour period when they could have negotiated with him. During that time, they didn't talk to him once, but what they did do is they set up 3 snipers in the cornfield surrounding his house. So instead of using the time to try to solve the problem, they used the time to set up a, what do they call that, you know what they talked about in the movie JFK.
Right.
The triangulation around this.
Make sure we got it from one side.
Yeah, and so they got him from 2 sides, and they managed to spray the blood over his wife and his child both.
So this is the exhibit. We're trying to we're expanding it and changing it, and we're trying to get it around the United States and around Europe too, to show the world in case they're tempted to follow the U.S. model. Maybe they'll think again. And Canada. So we're hoping to get it around, and we want you to be in touch with us. You can grab a brochure and a copy of the truce, and also if you can sign our guest book before you leave. And if you want to be in touch with us, the numbers and addresses are on the back of that HR95 brochure. So take your time with this.
Homegrown fantasy. Sorry, no pictures, no cameras inside. It's very Dutch.
Nice menu?
I don't know, they wouldn't let us photograph it.
It looked pretty big. That's where the Dutch people go, huh? Stand by.
Wait, look.
Oh, you're dragging. Here, say it again.
I didn't like that place.
Why?
Too Dutch.
Too Dutch? All right.
Here we are at Empire State Building. No Good Bud. KGB.
No
Right.
good, bud.
No Good Bud. That's what it's
Oh. But they do have that hash cigarette thing. This is where they had that hash cigarette.
Fine bud ingredients.
Bonbons. Ooh, space peanut butter and jelly. I never had that yet.
Really funny. Did you think it was Russian, Norman?
No. It was like real slow paced.
This is where they've got all the great old High Times magazines.
I go back to 76.
Yeah. But when is my root phase? Who's the blondie? Yeah.
Yeah, they said that kitty litter. I got that across customs last time. They wouldn't let me have my Cincy seed bank catalog, but I could bring in the kitty litter.
Look, share the drug informer.
Yeah, it's hemp stalk chips. Surprised they don't have the bucket of it out. Look at it. I'll be back in a bit.
Okay.
Oh, actually, first.
How does that feel?
I use that.
That's really good.
It might be sold out of those. Oh yeah. We had them, but we just bought like a dozen of them, you know.
Yeah. I like these pies. Yeah. These here, I like them a lot.
Exactly.
Some think it's the best one because it's too sticky in a way. You need to have a very dry one. Well, you must put it for half an hour so you can just relax because then it's drying out.
So what do you think?
Loved it, loved it.
Okay.
Here we are at Picasso's.
I like this place.
So big city.
You're welcome. All right.
Coffee Shop Hollywood.
Makes you homesick?
No, not at all. I don't know anything yet. I haven't been in there yet. Pet food.
Well, let's check it out. Do a push. So how do you like this place?
I like it. They give cookies with their coffee.
You see anything on the menu that looks good?
Super Carlin.
The Super Carlin, huh? You like that?
Super Carlin's where it's at. No, I'm not coming back yet. I love that place. It's so nice. Here we are at Greenhouse. They've won 2 consecutive years at the Cannabis Cup. They provide bus service for oysters. We're now.
Let's do it.
My cousin Erin, I'm here. She recognized one of Norma's photographs she just saw.
I finally got you in the High Times video here. First chance I had.
Yeah, no kidding. How you doing, Steve Hager? Everybody, High Times, congratulations on another successful journey.
What was your favorite event? What was your best event?
Probably my favorite event was going up to, besides the greenhouse here, hanging out here every day, was probably going to the red light district with Steve Hager at 3 o'clock in the morning.
All right.
I found the ceremony to be quite interesting. I've never seen something so bizarre yet profound and very deep and spiritual. I kind of digged it in a big way.
What'd you hate? What'd you think sucked?
Well, I thought sucked was the long waiting lines. Some of the foods I thought were a little bit difficult to deal with. But for the most part, wonderful culture, great people. And to the French president, you're a wanker.
Any coffee shops you wish you didn't miss? Or you think you covered all the ones you wanted?
Covered everything from the greenhouse to Lucky Mother's, Rich Cafe. And
Michelle, what do you think sucked?
What I think sucked was some of the people that don't respect the whole situation that's going on here. I mean, it's a spiritual thing. And I think a lot of mixing of too many kinds of different drugs with the whole thing. Saw a lot of stupidness going on, but you know, we pretty much ignored it and got on with our fun anyway. And it's been pretty fun for us. We like the people here. I thought it was a pretty clean city.
Anything in town that you wish you didn't miss, like museums or something like that? Did you any of that stuff?
I don't know.
You did it all, you think?
We did pretty much, yeah.
All right.
Nothing missed.
Cool.
Time in Life came out here and interviewed Arian and myself today.
Excellent.
Chip likes to pretend like he works there, and they don't seem to mind. He does this all the time.
This takes over, huh?
He does this at home, he does this here. He's an international helper. He likes to think he helps, I think he gets in the way more, but people don't seem to mind. Yeah?
No, did I take you there to the Drug and Peace House?
No, I think you might have said something about it.
Yeah. It's a cool spot.
Have you seen his books? Push the book.
Get your cannabis now.
You get like how many joints for free with that book?
Oh, you get a bunch of joints and some free space cakes and things.
T-shirts.
T-shirts, and it comes with a little plastic card.
Oh, that's where you got that card in.
Yeah, Norman likes to collect. Good little novelty item for Amsterdam, you know?
Ja, die is groot, hè? Nou, valt hem Ik had er vroeger altijd uit. Die is helemaal nog goed. Die is dicht gesleept. The magic tool through smoking man.
I know, I've been seeing the panic starting today.
Krijgen we dat weer?
Die dingen moeten we hier eruit pakken.
Ridiculous stuff in here. Ridiculous.
The what start?
Bar all the way in the back. This one? No, the next one there.
That one?
Yeah. How does it work?
Just give me 25 guilders.
I will. How does it work though?
Oh, it's this one, you know? So it falls like this.
You just put the money in there and it falls like this. Which one do you think's nicer, that one?
It's the idea of it. Put your papers flat in here.
Right. Just shut the fucking thing. Let me see the other one. What's this stand for? I just want the plain one, man. What do you think is cooler? Which one do you like better? This one or this one?
This one. I like this.
I like this. 25?
Yeah, give it to the guy in the back.
What guy?
not my stuff, you know, this. Right. Some of yours, some of the girls. Even een geeltje in een envelopje doen en het portemonneetje opschrijven. Ja?
So what's your favorite pot here?
I need more money.
What's your favorite weed here?
Mine right now?
There.
I'm digging the orange blossom.
Favorite stuff?
Yeah. Hold on, I gotta get more money. Hold this, I owe you 15. I owe you 15. I know, I get more.
This one and this one's going to win the cup tonight.
Yeah, let's hope so. The White Widow definitely got a good rap. Cali Mist, I had some of that. That was nice.
That's nice.
The Orange Buds with chip legs, huh? What's Vicky? Who's that named after?
Wiki the Viking, do you know?
No, Wicked Vicky.
Wiki the Viking.
Wiki the Vicky.
Wiki the Viking.
Wiki the Viking.
Wat voor wiet wil je hebben? Green twee.
Wat zeg je? We went to that hash place over near where we passed yesterday.
Tweedle.
What is it called?
It's right next to Dutch Flowers.
De Khmer or something?
Yeah.
The Tweed Khmer.
Yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful hash, great people, great atmosphere. And they gave me free orange juices.
What else did you like?
What else did I like?
Yeah.
I liked the guy behind the bar. He was really cute. The guy that gave me the free orange juices.
Here we are in the greenhouse, winner of the last 2 awards. He thinks he's going to win this year too. I don't know. Hopefully not. I just see a small, independent guy win like Lucky Mothers. But otherwise,
Okay, give me the lines, Norman. Come on. Say it with more strings. This is Norman talking to me.
This guy is a fucking Nazi. Let's get the fuck out of here.
Norman finally speaks the truth.
Okay, wait.
So Norman, how much do you think they paid off for this win this year?
Whoa. Okay.
Oh my God.
No, friend of mine.
What are you rolling up, Chip?
Orange blossom mixed with White Widow Keef.
There you go. What are you rolling up, Steve?
This is a mixture of bubblegum, Cali Mist, and Afghan hash.
Patricia, what are you rolling up?
I'm rolling Greenhouse's White Widow, perhaps the Cannabis Cup winner. You never know.
A shameless plug.
Shameless. We are shameless. We plug it outright.
Power distribution is not correct.
Sounds pretty good.
I know my ears are now when it comes to
I'm massaging Patricia because she needs
it.
Are you all tense?
I have to make money. Well, I'm not as tense as I was a minute ago. And on the computer, he scans things in and he does layering. He's got so many layers in his work.
You weren't the judge.
I know you need really good at
Have you been there recently?
Good hash.
I fix some things up there. I like that a lot.
It's really cool.
Really good on it.
Getting there.
That's what I mean. I'll be around.
That's what I was doing,
It's like the $10,000 Michael Kennedy
What is that? Here, I'll film you.
What is this stuff again? Orange blossom and white widow hash. Nice
Met this guy today from England. His friend called him up at the last minute. His laundry just was in the washing machine. He took it all out, threw it into a bag, still wet. Came out of here with like no money with his wet laundry in his car. In his car. I know, man. In his car. And he dried his clothes somewhere like here. It's funny. You know what this is?
What's that?
The White Widow greenhouse. Potential winner. I have a problem. I swim this way and then I swim that way.
Swimming with sharks, and up with a few bites.
I like that a little. I like swimming with sharks. I like getting a little nibble here and there.
Well, at least you're in their face.
Huh?
At least you're in their face.
At least I'm in their face, huh?
Yeah.
What do you mean, in the shark's face?
Yeah, it shows me they're not scared.
We have lots of shiny objects jingling around me to attract their attention.
Well, that joint would definitely do it.
Like a bullfighter.
It may not be shiny, but it's big enough to attract some attention.
If the lighters were childproof here at the greenhouse, nobody would be smoking.
Take a hit of this, brother. Come on.
This is the Manali hash?
I don't remember. I told you I'm just taking out whatever looks black.
Fake it for the
yes,
camera.
it is. It's Manali. Hello, Norman.
Holy heck. Smoking.
Unbelievable.
It's a really good one. Do that one more time. We'll get one more shot of that. Good, do that again. That was great. What a shampoo.
Get that in the movie, would ya? Don't even show her face.
All right, Manali treatment.
Sorry, what gun is it? What you got? My buddy. I am enjoying myself. I'm not okay.
Pretty cool.
Take it to the master blunt and roll it.
Oh, it's going. She's got it going.
You just can't see it. It's burning inside. It's not burning It's weird, huh?
The weed here's not dry enough. It's still wet. This used to be like on like about 5 feet ago, and it's like it was all dry. Now it's gonna burn really nice. These bags don't help.
No.
Well, that's why they use tobacco too, I know.
I can't use tobacco.
No, me either. It should be cured longer.
It's not left out to dry. It really needs to dry.
I don't know. You have to try it.
It's delicious though.
And what are you smoking there? That's burning bitter?
This is the Cali Mist and the bubble gum and the Afghan hash mixture.
Where'd you get those guys from?
The hash came from Tuatacama. And
excellent place.
And the grass came from the gray area, yeah.
All right.
Tuatacama?
The tweed come out, right?
Yeah, Tuatacama.
Is it Tueda or is it Tueda?
It's Tueda.
Tueda.
Yes, the
How'd you
double-
like that place?
The double E is pronounced like an A.
Right ahead of stop. That's
And what do you think about the pot you just brought here? Did you think it was too wet?
I hate to admit it, but I guess it is because I can't get it lit.
It's just that they didn't cure it. They rushed it.
Most places don't, though.
Yeah.
This one's burning really
The
good.
75 Pure was the only place that was beautiful.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, I bought some of that this morning.
This one's burning really good.
So, you think this place sucks then now because
No,
you
I
just
like
got
this
ripped off. You just got ripped off. You
Don't
got ripped
say
off.
I like this place.
You have to just take
I'm having fun too. So you did get ripped off? When that weight shrinks down tomorrow, what do you think it will weigh?
I don't think I'll notice. But
And Norman,
I didn't
now
really
that
think about
you've
that.
tasted my big blunts,
That's a good
what do you
point.
have to say for yourself?
I think you should have invested in this. This is better.
Callie?
No, what you have to do is get your weed early, man. Let it sit out and dry. So,
How many days was this drying for when you had it? Since you bought it?
4 days.
Oh, so this is perfect.
Right. 4 days ago.
In the gray area, it's wet. Completely fucking wet.
Just dry. All the weed I get, I let dry out overnight.
Can you smoke anything?
No, I just take it out and let it sit out in the room on the table.
When did you realize that you were buying wet pot everywhere you went?
Last November.
Yeah. Where'd you go when you sold your wet pot? And you were
Grasshopper was the first place I went to on Utrecht Straat, and they sold me some super skunk, and it was soaking wet and didn't smell like skunk, and that was probably the last weed I bought. I went directly for the hash.
A wise move. Let me try that wet joint of yours.
I developed a serious hash habit here.
Oh, I have serious hash.
It's the best thing in the world. I never really, it's falling apart. I never really got into hash.
You just see flushing late 60s.
Dry my buds. Even at home in New
Even
York.
at home, I take my buds out, I let them sit. I let them sit.
This guy that I used to get, like not Hydro, it was Bio, but he used to stick his haze in the oven and heat it up so it would be more accessible. It was incredible. It was incredibly strong.
That's the problem in Hawaii. The problem in Hawaii is it's so humid, the weed never really got dried out. It was getting moister. I brought totally dry weed there, completely crunchy. And after we got there a couple of days, it was like mush again, like fresh.
Rice and salt or something, right?
We kept it sealed up in the Tupperware as much as possible.
We would take it and put a butt on the air conditioner. And that works really well.
Don't pass me up to have a camera. People never see the cameraman. They just pass it right by.
Norman, it's 6 o'clock now already. I was supposed to meet her there between 6 and 6:30.
Yeah, we'll be there.
No, but what if she gets there now? Can be waiting.
No, 6:30.
No, it's between 6 and 6:30. It's going to end up there.
See you guys.
All right, Norman.
See you tonight.
All right, Norman. We'll see you later. Here, one more hit for the road.
You know, my pleasure.
Look at Norman. Norman, you're gonna hit him my super duper. 6-year-old, perfectly learning. Giant toast. No joke.
Quickly little monkey man.
Hey, here's your card, man. Which variety is this?
I don't know.
Well, this. Silver Haze. You know, I was just in Hawaii and I met a guy there who had some Dutch seeds and he grew some. Silver 2,500 feet up on Big Island.
Kids had silver pearl.
Norman, I'm gonna roll up another big fat hokey pokey.
You can really smell it. Smell it, Norman. It's so strong. It smells good.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll this puppy right up.
Stop bleeding now after.
All right.
So are you guys going to that Wellford now?
Yeah, we're gonna check out and see what's happening.
Which
here.
buds are which?
Okay, this right here is the Orange Blossom. This is the AK-47. This is the Purple Passion. And these is little pieces of some other thing right here, like White Widow along here. Small little White Widows over here mixed in.
What's your favorite? The orange, huh?
Favorite right here would be the Orange Blossom. Me and Mud, my partner, like this one.
Which one do you think is going to win the cup? That White Widow, it's got a cool name.
Who cares who wins? Let's just get to the picnic.